so well. I don't know, are you in winter or in summer in various parts of the world where you are coming from? Thank you so much for sparing time to join the United Movement session, capacity building session on mental health. It's good to work together in strengthening our voices on sexual reproductive health, HIV, and mental health. Do we have young people here? Maybe if you can show with emojis, just emojis, just loves, just likes, just to see that we are on the room and you can hear me clearly. All right, thank you so much. My apologies. I forgot to turn on my camera. I hope you can see me clearly now. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us from all the parts where you are joining us from in every country and in every corner. Thank you so much for sparing this time to join the United Movement capacity building session on mental health. And today we are excited to be focusing on strengthening our youth voices in sexual reproductive health, HIV, and mental health. And it's such an honor to be your moderator for this session. Okay, so literally our agenda. So we are going to start with a Mentimeter session on mental health and SRH. I think if you can move the slide to the next step with this agenda. Okay, thank you so much. And usually I forgot to introduce myself in every in every session that I moderate, and thanks to that slide that just came in. So my name is Paul Lovu. I'm an HIV, sexual reproductive health, and mental health advocate who is currently working at Zandiri in Zimbabwe. And Zandiri connect young people living with HIV with peer counselors to ensure they survive and thrive. So today, this is our agenda. We are going to start with an welcome and overview. This is the session that we are in, and we are going to move on to the Menti quiz on mental health and psychosocial support, and we'll proceed to quick evidence, some updates on how these intersects: mental health, psychosocial support, SRHR, and HIV. And then we're going to have an interesting panel discussion with United members around mental health and psychosocial support, SRH, and we're also going to have a question and answer section. Then we'll also move on to a Mentimeter on how we are currently, supporting and advocating. Then section of developing advocacy messages. We are also going to get into another Menti quiz section. What strategies do you use to support your mental health? Then we're also moving on to the resources for our own mental health and self-care. Then, of course, the close and thinking up. So literally, I know. Okay, so literally, I know that we are already somewhere. Let me just quote when we during the Ready Summit in 2023, one of the advocates from Tanzania by the name Cyprian says that you are not building our capacity. We are already somewhere. We are not starting from zero. You are strengthening your capacity. And today we are excited to be strengthening your capacity on HIV, sexual reproductive health, mental health, and SRHR. Okay, so now we move on to the second segment of, okay, you can introduce yourself within the chat. Now we're moving on to the next segment of our first Mentimeter on linking mental health and psychosocial support, SRHR. Okay, so on this section, you are welcome to scan. You're welcome to scan so that you can access the Mentimeter and share your contributions. There will be questions that you will see once you scan, or you can definitely copy the link, or maybe, I'm not sure, like Shanice or Faith, if you can share the link of the first Mentimeter into the slide so that our participants are able to access it. Thank you so much. And to those who want to share about the linkage between mental health and psychosocial support, sexual reproductive health, and HIV, you are also welcome to raise your hands. Then I'll choose one or two, three people that can also speak, or at least all of us we're responding to Mentimeter in through the link. Thank you so much for those who are just joining us in. We're at a segment where we are sharing our thoughts in the Mentimeter. You can access the link from the chat, or you can scan the Mentimeter to share your opinions. So right now we're at the moment where we're discussing the linkage. What is the linkage between mental health and psychosocial support, HIV, and sexual reproductive health? So you can raise your hands. Then I'll take speakers 1 or 2, 3 who wants to just share your thoughts. Feel free to raise your hands and you can to share your thoughts on your ideas around sexual reproductive health, HIV, and
Sasa huyo mwenye amegongewa gari amesema hakuna shida.
All right, thank you so much. I see we have Aniobi Paul. We have the same name. That's fine. You can go ahead and share your contributions.
Ay, nalabi usikanga hapo niko budget deposit. Hello, good day all. My name is Paul from.
Thank you so much, Paul. Proceed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Paul Chenna from ENAT, African Network Foundation and to do with HIV. So I feel like I'm really grateful to the White Cross and UNAIDS for this conversation. I feel like young people are lacking behind in interventions, especially for when it comes to HIV programming. Young people have been left behind, but I'm grateful for them for this initiative whereby we're coming to talk our minds and bring out our ideas on meaningful ways to engage young people. So thank you so much. I just want to just contribute and listen to the conversation, and I'll still join. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul, for your contributions. My apologies, I didn't hear you clearly, but thank you so much for your contributions. I hear the linkage. And yeah, there's a link between mental health and HIV. Thank you so much for your contributions. I will take the next speaker. We have Nga Murombe. You may proceed to share your contributions on the linkage.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I am Ngatendwe Shemurambedzi with AIDS Healthcare Foundation in Southern Africa, based in Johannesburg. From my experience and thoughts around the linkage, mental health plays a strong focus in adherence to treatment, but also influences how young people see their services.
Paul, you're speaking on mute.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies. Thank you, Shanice. Okay, thank you so much for your contributions, Paul and Nga. I'm sure we can all see that there is a linkage between mental health, sexual reproductive health, and HIV. And from the two speakers, they've just shared that this is a package of care that needs to be provided hand in hand. Okay, let me just get back to our Mentimeter. Okay, so the question is, yes, someone in your social network or family experienced mental health challenges. Okay, so this is the Mentimeter. If you missed the link, you can please go in the chat to access the link for you to add your contributions, or you can scan the barcode that you can see, the QR code that you can see on the screen to share your contributions. All right, thank you so much. So from the first question, I'm sure we can see the output. That's the blue bar, the blue horizontal bar. We can actually see that that's a huge bar, and a lot of people are agreeing that yes, maybe us, maybe yourself, your family, your friends have experienced mental health challenges here and there. Then we also have a second response where no, it's literally a little bar. Then maybe, so these are your thoughts, and this is data that that we can actually see that mental health challenges is actually something that we need to put more investment and more time in terms of programming and support. So we are actually supposed to invest in mental health. As you have seen the results from the first slide, they actually shows that we all experience mental health challenges at some time. Then the second question is also saying, in your community, do you feel mental health challenges are stigmatized? Wow. I'm sure you see this huge blue bar. You actually see, I'm sure within our communities, we have actually seen people, that maybe laugh, or that think maybe someone who is facing mental health challenges is going crazy or is joking. Some of those mixed feelings and mixed experiences around mental health. But we're actually saying that the way that we feel a headache, then we go to the clinic to get the headache medicine, is the same way we are supposed to also seek mental health challenges. But usually people, when they see someone who is experiencing depression or trauma or anxiety, they might think maybe they're just joking or they're just being playful, but while at least it's actually something that is serious that we need to take on. Yeah, next slide. Okay, as a youth advocate, how confident do you feel to talk about mental health? Okay, so now as HIV and sexual reproductive health advocates, as mental health advocate, how confident are we in terms of speaking out about mental health? Okay, so yeah, it's also, we are, from these results, we can actually see that we are so much comfortable about sharing our thoughts. We are ready to lead the conversation. We are comfortable sharing our thoughts. Okay. Yeah, and we could use yeah, that's quite great. Quite great results which are coming in, and I'm so happy and excited that you're ready to lead the conversation and you're comfortable about sharing your thoughts on mental health. And of course, when we are doing our HIV advocacy work, when you are supporting our peers to adhere to their treatment, let us also not forget about providing them counseling. And we all know that there is a power in peer counseling. Next slide. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing the Mentimeter section. I'm sure we just have a brief of the results. And this time, I'm leaving this time to Shanice to take us into our next stage of quick evidence and updates. Shanice, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, for such a good introduction. And I feel like everyone in the room is excited. I'm so happy to see that we are confident to speak about mental health. And what I'm going to do now is just take us quickly through a quick evidence update about just to position where we are when we're speaking about mental health in our region and also globally. So some statistics will come up, and I'll be very fast because we'd also like to hear from the young panelists who advocate for mental health. If Faith, kindly just share my slides for me.
So let me stay in
I stayed there before I got married for 12 years.
Okay.
Kindly mute if you are unmuted. Please, Faith, if you can kindly share my slides for me and we can get going. Hi, Shanice. I'm struggling to share the slides from my side. Just okay. Thank you, Faith. I think they've come up now. Yeah. Oh my God. There's people who are joining keep on popping up and taking me back. All right, thank you, Faith. Maybe if you can just move on to the next slides. The evidence updates and linking MHPSS and SRHR. So we're going to start with an overview of adolescents and young people and our positioning of mental health within the region. Okay, it seems that okay. But I can go on. Okay, it's come up. So globally, it's estimated that 1 in 7 adolescents, which is 14% of the population, which is 10 to 19, experience mental health conditions. And this remains largely unrecognized. Thank you, Faith. We can now see the screen. So that's similar for our region because those are global statistics that show that 37 million adolescents live with mental health disorders in Africa. So it's slightly higher in older adolescents, as you can see in my screen. Maybe the previous slide, Faith. Thank you. It's slightly higher in older adolescents, which hit 13.5%. And this is the ages of 15 to 19. And then for the ages of 10 to 14, you have the number of girls living with mental health conditions at 10.3%, and the number of boys living with mental health conditions slightly higher at 12.1%. So what does this show? It shows that our mental health in our region needs to be worked on a bit more based on the estimates that have been given. And it also shows that many mental health disorders also emerge during adolescence and young people. So a lot of our mental health challenges normally occur by the age of 14, and we'll get to that a bit more when we're explaining why this is so. Next slide, thank you. The impact of mental health conditions is quite great. The data from the next slide, Faith, also indicates that more than 20 adolescents every day lose their lives to suicide. And it's similar for our region, just as it is in other regions, because remember, these are global statistics I'm showing, but in our region, it shows that suicide rates are more common among boys than in girls, as you can see from my screen. So you have 73% ages 10 to 14 and ages 15 to 19 have 70% of boys, committing suicide. Over that is around 3,500 deaths and 4,500 deaths as compared to girls. Next slide, thank you. Another thing that we need to talk about is anxiety and depression, which account for almost 50% of the mental health disorders in Africa, and higher rates have been associated and seen amongst girls. So why? Earlier on, I mentioned that estimates, next slide, Faith, thank you. Earlier on, I mentioned that estimates show that half of mental health challenges occur by the age of 14. But what is it that makes adolescents so susceptible to mental health challenges? So we will look now a little bit about our growing brain. And the growing brain has regions regulating social behavior. And this developed throughout adolescence. And at that time, an adolescent is learning how to also navigate the social environment. So these are two factors that are playing in this brain development and the social environment the adolescent is in. So evidence suggests that the brain and social environment, they sculpt each other throughout this adolescent development, brain development. And this interaction sorry, Faith, I think you keep moving the slides. Just go back to the slide where there's brain development. Thank you. These interactions between the brain development and the social environment at this time are found to increase the risk or promote resilience for mental health. So it depends on what the adolescent is exposed to. And exposure factors can come from peer pressure, fear of missing out, FOMO, we like saying that a lot, the exploration of identity, media influence, a lot of external influence, actually, gender norms, the quality of life at home, or if you're living with chronic conditions, stigma, discrimination, a lack of access to quality services and support is something that can play into these factors. So this was just the global landscape I was giving you. But now let's look at mental health, sexual reproductive health, and HIV. And there are many aspects of this that impact our mental health, and also vice versa. Mental health can impact sexual reproductive health and HIV. And Faith, if you can just go 2 slides down, we can talk about now adolescents living with HIV within our region. So for one, for any person actually living with a long life adherence, it is difficult. So for an adolescent to go through normal development changes, it is also hard for them to cope when you have already a highly stigmatized chronic condition. And this can result in a lot of psychological challenges and psychosocial challenges. So HIV experiences impact on adolescents' mental health more and more. And we are seeing evidence that poor mental health impacts on important HIV outcomes. So there are various studies across the region that I'll just highlight, and you can see on my screen, that confirm the burden of mental health conditions for adolescents living with HIV. So in Cape Town, you can see we had a significantly poorer functional competence and self-concept, and higher levels of depression, anger, and disruptive behavior. In Namibia, there is greater emotional behavior and problems that was associated with adolescents living with HIV. A study in Kenya found that 49% of adolescents living with HIV reported to have at least one psychiatric diagnosis of suicide, with 32% having anxiety disorders and 18% having a major depressive disorder. In Uganda, a study found that 51.2% had scores indicating significant psychological distress. 17.1% had attempted suicide in the past year. So these are just some statistics to kind of tell you the linking between HIV, mental health, and sexual reproductive health rights within our region. Next slide. So some other outcomes have shown that it's not just adolescents living with HIV that are having mental health challenges and that need to be addressed. There is also being a pregnant or a young mother that can also increase mental health challenges. So there's a study that was done called Hey Baby by the University of Cape Town in Oxford that shows 15% of pregnant or breastfeeding young moms were experiencing mental health disorders. It is even higher for those that live with HIV, because it indicated 20% indicated experiencing common mental health disorders. Next slide, Faith. Another thing to talk about is gender-based violence and its direct impact on mental health. So violence in 20 countries indicated that nearly 9 in 10 adolescent girls who reported having gone through forced sex for the first time experience mental health challenges. So gender-based violence against young women and girls is directly linked to very many poor health outcomes, including long-term mental health disorders, such as anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorders. So GBV has also been associated with adverse physical and psychosocial outcomes, such as unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, and discrimination or stigmatization within the family or community. And this all contributes to mental health challenges and problems. And the last group, Faith, if you can go down, is talking about key populations. So unfortunately, there's not much data on young key populations, like the LGBTQI data. However, there is data in 9 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa that indicate LGBTQI adults have higher levels of mental health concerns, and they have experienced more violence and have faced more barriers to healthcare that are directly linked to their sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression. So as you can see the graph, around almost 50% have experienced depression within these key populations. We can also gain some more understanding from Europe and US, America, where studies have indicated that adolescent young people who identify as LGBTQI, where you find there's 3 times the adolescents and young people are 3 times more likely to have symptoms of depression, and then they're 2 times more likely to engage in self-harm than compared to their heterosexual peers. So now what's the link? We want to connect mental health and impaired decision-making in the next slide, Faith, which can also lead to risks in terms of sexual reproductive health. So there is a link with substance abuse, I think we all know this, and mental health, which can impact our decisions, because substance abuse also, remember, it affects our brain functionality. And in terms of sexual well-being or pleasure, people who live with mental health conditions often struggle with having fulfilling sexual lives, and not just sexual lives, but it can also impact on the relationship with others, and also intimacy levels with others. So you can see in the next slide that there's a lot to be done, but there are many reasons why mental health and SRHR and HIV need to be integrated at all levels, even within our advocacy. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. So if you see the next slide, there is evidence on mental health outcomes if you integrate these interventions. So for example, in Zimbabwe, there is the Community Adolescent Treatment Supporter model, CATS model, and it shows a significant reduction in common mental health conditions. So you can see that those receiving standard CATS counseling and those receiving enhanced CATS counseling had a greater reduction in common mental health conditions. So counseling is a way that you can also, when you're integrating it within these programs, can mitigate mental health occurrence. And this study has also been scaled up and adapted in 5 countries in the region. So, but just to mention that the enhanced CATS counseling model included training on problem discussion therapy, which, can be used as a friendship bench kind of model. So some of this is just a good example of what can happen when we address mental health, when we integrate mental health and address it together with our advocacy in sexual reproductive health and HIV. I want to pass the baton back to Paul to lead us to our next session. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Wow, that is so super. Thank you so much, Shanice, for sharing with us the messages and the knowledge bites. Quite much more, alarming how mental health is connected to each and every part of our life, and it has to be a priority in terms of our work, in terms of our program implementation, and each and every other things that we do. And of note from Shanice, mental health also being linked to our to substance abuse, also linked to our sexual life, also even linked to the relationships that you also have, the intimacy that you also have. So you can actually see that, you know, someone experiencing mental health, they will be ending up taking substances, which further, you know, affects them in terms of their mental health as well. And someone facing and experiencing depression, trauma, you know, their sexual life is also compromised, and even their relationship intimacy. Thank you so much, Shanice, for taking us through a wonderful session. And I'm very sure that you have learned a lot from wherever you are in. So now we are getting into our next segment of a panel. So now we are diving into the panel. We are joined by vibrant United Movement members that we're going to have a conversation on how we can strengthen our youth voices within SRHR, mental health, and HIV. Faith, you can move to the slide. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm very sure that you see that we are joined by Munira, all the way from South Africa. We're also joined by Trevor, all the way from Uganda, and you're also joined by Messi, all the way from Kenya. And I won't waste too much of the time. I will let them introduce themselves, starting with you, Munira, to Trevor, and then Messi. The floor is yours to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Hi, colleagues. It is so awesome to reconnect, even within our virtual space. I am Munira Africana Katongole, and I'm a Black feminist writer and researcher. I'm really interested in including the realities of African adolescent girls and young women, African adolescent girls and young women, into the scope of academia, where we currently remain marginalized or otherwise misconceptualized. My latest research exploration was with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which was looking at how we develop health systems within the realities of African girls and adolescents. Otherwise, the specific niche I bring to this conversation is that I am a psychology student, and I am looking at how we can integrate the knowledge of Black feminist discourse into African creative therapy to really ensure that psychotherapy is accessible for every young woman as a basic need and healthcare point. Thank you. And I look forward to engaging in this conversation with everyone in the call.
Thank you, Munira. And one crazy thing about you.
One crazy thing about me is that, like, I'm a daredevil. I come from a very conservative household, like most of us do, but I'm a daredevil. Like, I've done most of it. Or not drugs, however, but I've done most of it. Yeah, that's the crazy fact about me.
All right, thank you so much. Over to you, Trevor.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. My apologies, first of all, for the background. I'm actually at a school and we're having a dialogue with students on HIV, SRH, and now that we're having this very serious dialogue, we are also now ensuring that we channel mental health conversations right into the conversation. So I can confirm on the call that mental health is one of the key conversations that we are holding in this dialogue. Greetings, everyone. Chair, thank you for leading us through the sessions. I appreciate the rich extent of ideas and knowledge. Can I proceed?
Yes, proceed. Sorry about that.
Yes, my name is Trevor Imojel. I am the reigning Mr. Y Plus Uganda and an SRHR and HIV advocate. I am also country youth coordinator AHF Uganda Cares, which is an HIV/AIDS organization. My contribution to the call, I bring in the perspectives of a young person living with HIV, number one. Number two, a programmer in youth programming, very importantly. I also bring in, yes, perspectives of an advocate, especially on the policy end. So I look forward to having a rich and exciting conversation. And yes, thank you for this very wonderful call. Over to you, Chair.
And before you go, one thing crazy about you, something unique about you.
Oh, one very, very exciting thing about me is that I dance. Oh my God, I'm a very good dancer.
All right. Thank you so much, Trevor, and over to you, Messi.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all okay. My name is Mercy Wanjiko from Kenya. I'm an SRHR and HIV youth advocate, and I champion for mental health and psychosocial support integration with matters SRHR, HIV, and I'm so glad to be having this conversation today because mental health is very key, even when we want to access SRHR and HIV services and even information. Mental health is a very crucial and important component. One unique thing about me, I'm a very young grandma. I have relatives that have relatives that have young children. So I'm a young grandma. That is one unique factor about me. A young grandma who is a young person. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to our great panelists, Munira, Trevor, and Messi. You can also see that we have got Mr. Wiplas Uganda. We have got a young grandma in a young person. We've got Munira, our Black feminist, who is looking to transform, academia within the African context. Faith, can you show the previous slide with the questions? All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. So, I think I would like to start with Munir. Within your work, and thank you so much for focusing within the African content. I know that we have got a lot of beliefs, a lot of values. Some of the values and beliefs which which suppress our rights as young people and which are not, which does not express equality and which are not fair. So I want you to tell us more. This is the discussion. Let's talk. Tell us more about, how do you include mental health and psychosocial support, within your advocacy work within the African continent? Thank you, Munira.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Before I do answer the question, I wanted to offer some analysis on some of the data that we went through, at least from the scope as a psychology student. First of all, I want to start by saying that there's a disparity that exists between the reporting of mental health and what actually exists on the ground. So we could quite easily say that the stat or the reporting that 14% of adolescents live with mental health diagnosis or disorders or challenges is far likely to be higher. One, because the conceptualization of mental health in and of itself is wrong. We only account for mental health when it's in its extreme state, like depression, anxiety, and suicidality. That is the end spectrum of mental health. But there can be mental health disorders like consistent sadness. There can be mental health disorders like social anxiety, social withdrawal, so forth. So we definitely need to have a much more broad, robust form of reporting mental health on the continent so that we can understand its urgency and we can consequently draw in funding and infrastructure to respond to the need and demand. The second point I wanted to make is that our reporting on mental health is happening in silos. And I think Shanice did kind of revealed that in the data. So we are taking stats we have in SRHR, and then we're taking stats that we have in mental health, and we're trying to draw linkages instead of trying to report on young people living with HIV, young survivors of SRH abuse, and understanding what mental health challenges they experience. And as an SRH abuse survivor myself, I can say it's very far-fetched to assume that a person who has survived SRH or a person living with HIV and is consistently stigmatized will not have a mental health challenge. It's very impossible. Like, the process of HIV stigma is traumatic. The process of SRH abuse is traumatic. So of course there is going to be a mental health component affected in that, and we need to treat that as such. And then the last point I wanted to make is that the mental health industry is currently very problematic. Most patients who are within the mental health services are usually pathologized or alienated. We seem to have this tendency within the African society to dehumanize or act as if people living with mental health diagnoses are mad. Like that's the common term we usually hear in the discourse of in the African discourse, that these people are mad, they're not normal human beings, they're weird, or we kind of alienate them. We need to understand that anybody can live with mental health challenges. It doesn't make them any more human, and in fact shows us the lack of infrastructure and support we have for people who are affected by issues, whatever the issue may be, SRH or HIV, and consequently experience mental health challenges. So that's just my take on my long-winded take on the data that has been presented as a psych student. But to answer the question more specifically, really it comes from my own space as an activist and my communities of activists who are just absolutely horrified by the state of the world. Most time I think about the world and I feel very like depressed and unoptimistic. It's not encouraging to live in a world where consistently young women are being excluded, consistently young women are being abused, consistently there's people who are disenfranchised economically, politically, right? This is not encouraging times. So because of those challenges, I've been affected in my mental and psychosocial health, and I realized the need and importance of it to be integrated into our HIV and SRH response. Over.
Thank you so much, Munira. You can literally say that again, the same concern that we raise when we, have a toothache or have a headache or a stomachache. We run to hospitals, to pharmacies to get medicine. We are supposed to do the same when someone has faced depression, trauma, they need mental health support. And it also has been proven that peer-to-peer support is effective. So we need our peers to talk to, and we are supposed to be supported in terms of ensuring we have good mental health. Thank you so much for sharing that, Munira. Now moving on to our Mr. Y+. Uganda. That's nice. We've got Mr. Y+, the most handsome person we have within this room. Thank you so much. How do you include mental health and psychosocial support within your advocacy work? Trevor.
Thank you so much. Again, I want to establish audibility. Can you hear me?
Yes, proceed.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I'll begin by mentioning very clearly that one of the things that inspired me in this particular journey is the deprioritization of mental health in HIV spaces. And I must say that even in programming, the gaps of inclusion of mental health are still quite big. And we just need to have even the programmers on the call listen to the importance of integration of mental health into HIV, into the HIV response and SRH as well. And so one of the things that really pushed me on this is that because when we look at HIV, we have the tendency of looking at the support in terms of the ARVs, and basically that's it, because you have your treatment, that's it. But we do not recognize the importance of the mental aspect, the contribution of the mental wellness to this very important aspect of HIV and the entire wellness of the body. So for me, what I can look at very importantly, number one, is capacity building of staff in the HIV space to ensure that they are able to deliver integrated modes of treatment for HIV. So for example, if someone living with HIV comes for medication, there is need for mental health screening. There is need to understand their state of mental health through the screening. There is also need to delve deeper because we have very key challenges like Shanice shared earlier, things like anxiety and depression. These are things that are actually very prevalent among young people and the population across the continent. So the importance are the things that we are pushing for. Number one is capacity building for the health workers to ensure that they are able to have these services delivered, but also very importantly, having people understand how poor mental health drives new HIV infections. When someone has poor mental health, they are predisposed to unhealthy sexual behaviors or risky behaviors that may lead them to getting new HIV infections. On the other hand, for example, an HIV diagnosis that is fresh has a strong impact on someone who has just been diagnosed. And so it is going to trigger a span of mental health conditions, of course, very prevalently things like anger, anxiety, depression. And so understanding very importantly that we need to have mental health strongly, significantly brought into the picture. That is what really my advocacy is about in this area. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Y plus Uganda. Yeah, we can all actually learn. Mr. Uganda said someone who is fresh, who is getting tested. Testing HIV positive, it's not easy to accept your HIV status once you get tested. And that's there and there where mental health support needs to start. Minira has said it, in the community, we are living with HIV, even if we are now strong and now independent, but we still need continued mental health support. And now to the young grandma in a young person body, Messi, over to you. Messi, how are you including mental health and psychosocial support within your advocacy? If you're speaking, Messi, I think you are muted. All right, that's okay. I think we lost Messi. But anyway, let's just move on to the next question. Now it's about integration. I'm sure from Shanice has shared a lot of information, a lot of data. Even Winira has also shared some, findings from researches and other things. So I think now, how can we literally utilize, that data, this information that is available? How can we integrate mental health and psychosocial support into our advocacy? I think, Minira, you can proceed with the conversation. How should we best integrate?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So everybody always says, I have the best mother in the world and I have the best friend in the world and whatever. So this will be my time to say I have the best psychologist in the world. I'm currently working with a psychologist and I am privileged to work with the psychologist, but I also recognize that psychosocial support should be basic healthcare and that every single person should have access to psychosocial support the same way every single person needs healthcare. We've all gotten sick at some point. We were born in hospitals. We are within the environment of healthcare. And that's how we need to imagine psychosocial healthcare. I'll speak a bit more about my psychologist and really what she's taught me as I'm also navigating the path of being a psychologist. The first thing is that we need to, currently what's happening when it comes to mental health and psychosocial services is that we are viewing it in a reactive approach. Usually the saying goes, prevention is better than cure. So we are consistently in a chain of cure. We wait for people to reach levels of depression and suicidality, and that's when we want to act. So we need to establish mechanisms where we are consistently preventing mental health challenges. And how do we do that? We need to understand that mental health challenges isn't happening in isolation, right? It isn't happening because of one event, right? It is mental health and psychosocial well-being is tied to systems, it's tied to structures. Are you growing up in a healthy home? Are you growing up in a home that enforces positive health-seeking behaviors? Are you in a school environment where you're not stigmatized? Are you in an employment environment where you are not excluded from decision-making spaces, or you're not excluded from employment because you are living with HIV and so forth? So it is a whole structural undertaking we have to take to ensure that mental health and psychosocial services is embedded in basic healthcare. But more than that, I think that within psychology itself, within the field of psychology and psychosocial service rendering, an experience I've had with my psychologist is that psychosocial support isn't just talking. Usually the classic way we think about psychosocial support is that you go and you tell your problems and they're supposed to give you solutions. And that's currently what's happening on ground. There's a very corporate approach to psychosocial services. And the reason that's problematic is because our problems don't happen only in conversations. they happen at home, they happen in experiences and occurrences. So an approach that I've had with my psychologist is, for example, some therapy sessions have been going into spaces that have exposed me to trauma. I've had therapy sessions where my psychologist would sit with my family and would have discussions. I've had therapy sessions that was in gardens, at theaters, at movie parks, right? So we need a much more creative, robust, expansive way of rendering psychosocial services, because currently my view is that psychosocial services and the counseling modalities is purely ineffective. And we also have a lot of young people reporting on that. I can't give any stats to this matter, but at least in my personal experiences as a person openly living with mental health diagnoses, our field is currently very ineffective and very inefficient when it comes to quality transformative mental health and psychosocial health care. Over.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Renita. You know, I liked when you said you have a psychologist. I liked that. You know, and I also liked when you say that mental health is supposed to be made a basic need. You know, the way where we have clinics that do not have mental health personnel, we have hospitals which doesn't have mental health facilities. You know, this is something that we need to look into to ensure that it's a basic need everywhere you go. You have mental health personalities, but we also want to, you know, thank the organizations that support us, that support peer supporters. We are always there for each other to provide us mental health and psychosocial support. Thank you so much, Minira. And moving on to our Mr. Y Plus Uganda. How should we integrate mental health and psychosocial support into your advocacy? I was also glad that you shared that you're actually at an event where you are going to be, you know, building the capacity of young people around mental health. Thank you so much for doing that. That's exactly what we are saying, that we are supposed to integrate mental health within our daily work that we are doing. You may proceed, Mr. Trevor.
Thank you. Chair, I believe we are actually going on so well, and I appreciate that the number on the call continues to remain constant, meaning we're very interested in the conversation that we are having. So to go straight to the question, number one, I want to emphasize the need for safe spaces. This cannot be said anymore. This is something that is very, very pertinent, especially when it comes to young people. Safe spaces is something that we shouldn't take lightly. And I think to this day where we have people that are always busy, people always up and down, getting a safe space is something that is taking people, it's making things very difficult. But I want to let you know that getting a safe space is something that is easy and possible, and it is very important, because at the end of the day, we need somewhere where people can open up about their struggles, because people are going through a lot of things, and what may not seem big for you might be a struggle for someone. So understanding that we do not need to stigmatize people's conditions, and embracing people's challenges, and ensuring that we are able to listen and open up. I appreciate when Munira said that there is a corporate way we are taking therapy these days. I believe that we need to dig further. We need to have very deep conversations with people, and creating an environment where people do not feel stigmatized to speak about their conditions. That is very, very important. And then secondly, I want to speak about the macro level of planning. I still want to emphasize that we have sidelined and deprioritized mental health in our plannings. And that also means that the funding for mental health is very low. I want to speak to the programmers on the call and people that have activities, that it is very important to integrate mental health into your discussions, and ensuring that we treat it as something as serious, because in African culture and context, I must let you know that mental health is something that we think, when someone says they are going for therapy, we think maybe they're urban kids, or they are kids that, I don't know, something like that around there. But I want to let you know that mental health is a very important aspect of human wellness and well-being. And so we need to emphasize that. And then thirdly, I want to speak about self-care on an individual level. We may talk about these programs, we may talk about approaches, but at the end of the day, it is for individual responsibility for us to ensure that we take care of our own mental health. I want to give an example for myself where there's so many people coming to you, so many young people that need your assistance. But at the end of the day, you also break down. You also have episodes where you're not feeling well or something is distressing to you. So it is important that we nurture and protect our own mental health, because at the end of the day, if we are okay, then we're also able to help others. And then for men, I just want to speak to the men on the call very briefly. It is okay not to be okay, because the dark masculinity that we have in our society right now has pushed men to the level where men are supposed to be men, and that means they cannot break down. But I want to let us know that it is important for men to embrace that we also have to seek proper mental health, proper mental health treatment, proper mental health support. Our psychosocial systems, our support systems are a very, very important aspect of our human well-being. And so, yes, those are some of the things that I believe, Chair, our members should take from the call. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I really liked when you said we need safe spaces. Sometimes when you are alone, without any support group, without any peer supporters, you feel like you are the one within the world. You think you are alone. You think you are lonely. But I just want to highlight, at Shandiri, I'm so grateful that it's Shandiri. We organize and we facilitate support groups. We are trained and mentored to provide adherence counseling to each other, to provide counseling, to provide psychosocial support to each other. We also hold our support groups where we share challenges and how we've managed to overcome them. So I agree with you so much that we need safe spaces, and it's something that we can take, we need to take up for everyone in every country to have a safe space. Okay, I think, Messi, you are back, our young grandma within a young lady's body. If you can maybe tell us more in terms of what advice do you have for others who are looking to do the same? Messi? My apologies for that. I think Messi is facing some technical challenges. Okay, back to you, Munira. What advice do you have for others who are looking to do the same integration and in terms of including mental health and psychosocial support within our work?
Awesome. Awesome. It's unfortunate that infrastructure challenges are inhibiting our dear Mercy from being on the call. But with that being said, yeah, Trevor, your point was very well appreciated, especially when you spoke about mental health being deprioritized by men. And I think it's the culture of toxic masculinity that says that men need to consistently be strong, and that men can't speak up because it would be a stain on their masculinity, and that they're less men, and that's why they have higher rates of suicide and just mental health diagnoses, because they don't even seek mental health support, because a man seeking mental health support, it means that they're less of a man and they're not strong. So that was a very important call, and I support you. And as a community of feminists, we're really in solidarity with men having healthy mental health, being mentally well, and also seeking positive masculinity, because it then also has an impact in how they participate within the community. But without sidetracking so much, really our goal in the HIV response is to ensure that every single person who is receiving healthcare, HIV healthcare, and SRH healthcare, and even mental health care, is that they have a transformative experience. It's not well enough for a young person to be taking their their ARVs consistently, even if they're taking their ARVs consistently and they're adhering to their medication and so forth, but they're just unhappy and they're just depressed, and they're just they're having mental health challenges even beyond linkages to the HIV itself. We really want everybody in our sector and in our field to be healthy, thriving, well-rounded individuals, and this is why the element of mental health needs to be a basic element of our healthcare in all fields, and particularly in the HIV and SRH response, where we have peculiar vulnerabilities. My advice in this regard is that I want us to be a bit more creative in how we think about mental health and social services exists everywhere. It exists in the home, how we speak to each other, how we show love to each other. It exists in our relationships, how we listen to each other, how we support each other, how we show up to each other. It exists in the office space and how we can communicate needs to each other, financial or other work needs. It exists in schools, whether we're friendly and we're kind and we can speak to teachers about challenges we have, or even the classroom being a safe enough environment for us to talk about our traumas without shame. So mental health and psychosocial services exist in every element and facet of our spaces and of our societies. And we need to take that up in vigor and enthusiasm and determination and in the spirit that having mental health and a good psychological state is normal, it's a need, and it's something we should be enthusiastic about. Over.
Thank you so much, Munira. That was interesting. Yeah. And it's okay not to be okay. We need to support each other. You need to find someone to talk to, find a peer to talk to. You need a care for the carer. You need that. And Messi, if I may get back to you, if you are now back on the line, just to share with us, may you kindly share with us your message around how you include mental health and psychosocial support in your work, or how you integrate, or even what is your advice to others on mental health and psychosocial support. Messi, if you're back on the line. Or maybe you're muted. Oh, my apologies about that. Let's come back to you, Mr. Y Plus Uganda. Trevor, please come in and share your advice to others as we quickly wrap up this segment.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is a very rich conversation. So yeah, when we talk about what others need to know, I believe what they need to do, number one, is I must say this: the people on the call, they converted almost, because they have taken the initiative to join this call. And I want to mention that that is the first step into, promoting your mental health advocacy, because at the end of the day, this call is going to enlighten your mind. And I want to really appreciate United Movement for being very intentional and for ensuring that this information reaches out. So first step is to keep in touch with the United Movement and ensure that you, yes, work with the United Movement, because there's quite a lot of segments that the United Movement is very deliberate on, and mental health is one of those key topics that the movement is promoting, and we are the movement for young people. So I want to implore you, I want to encourage you to be a part of the movement. Secondly, very importantly, I want to mention that it is very important that you understand the nexus and the intersectionality of HIV and mental health, because at the end of the day, you need to really know where do these two meet? At what point should we? Because when you look at things like depression, anxiety, people have talked about suicide and things in that line. It is very important to know the impacts that HIV has on mental health and the impact that mental health has on HIV. So you can see that dark symbiotic relationship. And so I want to encourage you to invest very richly in learning more about mental health and HIV, and ensuring that even as a person, as an advocate, you can have a one-on-one with someone, because you have this rich background of knowledge in your mind about these two conditions. And so you're able to professionally or effectively help someone navigate their mental health challenges as a person living with HIV, because these challenges are actually unique and they really need sort of tailored support. Thirdly, I want to encourage that you use the digital platforms. Media right now is so very important. And so if you are a mental health advocate, it is important that you can organize or schedule conversations of this kind. You can also consult with digital platforms that are directed to mental health, and ensure that we utilize the digital space for our work. Right now, we are able to cut across countries. We have South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda, because of the media, because of the digital world. So it is a very good platform that you can harness and use to promote your advocacy. And I want to mention that very strongly, because yes, it is something that we can do. And then lastly, I want to speak about, yes, what we do here in our programming. School-based programs is a very important area because when you look at the majority of the adolescents and young people, many of them are in school. So it is good that you can channel your information through school settings, channel your information to students, make sure that your information is tailored to the audience that you're actually looking out for. Because at the end of the day, when we have this support, when we have the right people getting this knowledge, then we achieve so much. At the end of the day, I really appreciate the call, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Trevor. And thank you so much for reminding us that you need to join the United Movement. We might be coming from different countries, different organizations, but what we need to achieve is one goal. We are all fighting. We're all fighting within the HIV response. We're all fighting to ensure that we've got good mental health and psychosocial support. We're all fighting to ensure that we have quality access to sexual reproductive health and rights services. And thank you so much for sharing that. We all need safe spaces. We all need mental health as a basic service. Okay. So before we just jump into the next segment, I see Messi just sent a message. So Messi, if you can quickly share your message in a very few minutes so that we continue with the next segment. Messi, to you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Let me just open my video. My internet has been misbehaving. It's on and off. But I think my colleagues, Trevor and Munira, have given their inputs comprehensively. So maybe I can just give one sentence on the three questions that you asked. What led me to include more of mental health and psychosocial focus on my advocacy? I think accessing SRHR and HIV services without mental health services leaves the SRHR and HIV component hanging. So it's quite important because inclusion of mental health and psychosocial focus will be able to help me make informed decisions on matters of bodily autonomy and integrity so that you can be able to access the correct and consistent SRHR and HIV services. And on the next point, how are you integrating mental health and psychosocial support into my advocacy? Through collaboration with organizations that work on matters of mental health and psychosocial focus on matters. It's very crucial to integrate mental health and psychosocial support on matters of SRHR and HIV. It will, at the end of the day, we not only want to get the correct services, but we want to feel like it's the correct, we are not being coerced by anybody to get these services. And where does that start? It starts from my mind. And for my mind to be okay, my mental health and my support system is supposed to be okay. So what advice do you have for others who are looking to do the same? I just came in when Trevor was saying, and I think he summarized everything. So the most important thing is just us as youth advocates advocating for more allocation of funds on matters of mental health and psychosocial support, especially in our health financial budgets in our countries, and also collaborating with like-minded organizations, civil society, government stakeholders, development partners, just to advocate for allocation of resources towards mental health and psychosocial support. It's quite crucial, it's quite important. We are not the future of tomorrow. We as young people, we are the future today. So our takeaway home should be, let us be at the forefront of advocating for integration of mental health and psychosocial support on matters of SRHR and HIV advocacy. Thank you, and back to you, Trevor. Back to you, Paul.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now I'm excited. I'm so happy that Messi, you managed to share your contributions. I was now worried. My apologies. We all face technicalities. As we get into the next segment, you can see on the screen that there's a QR code. So now we are back to the Mentimeter. I want to hear your contributions. How are you currently supporting or advocating for mental health and psychosocial support? So if you scan on this QR code, you can quickly share your contributions through our Mentimeter. We want all of your participation. I know that we are over 70. Oh, wow, that's so great. We are over 70, and we all need to contribute. So you can share your contributions through the Mentimeter. And please, like more, may you kindly share maybe the link as well in the chat to ensure that those who are not able to scan, they are able to follow the link within the chat. So yeah, there are a lot of messages that are within the chat. I'm just going to browse through the messages during this time, or at least you are sharing your responses on the Mentimeter. And thank you so much for remaining with us and for taking your time to join this session for us to be able to exchange, cross-pollinate, and strengthen our youth voices within the HIV, SRHR, and mental health response. Okay, so if they, I think I'll take one, I'll take 2 or 3 speakers from the previous segment. If you want to speak more, you want to add, you have questions, please. I need 3. You can raise your hand so that I'm able to pick 3 people. I think 3 people will be able to contribute.
Paul, there's a hand up from Deborah.
Okay, Deborah, please proceed.
Thank you, Paul. Just give me a hands up if you're hearing me. My network is a little bit shady. Beautiful. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to recon on the point that most of the speakers have talked about, availing sustainable programs that respond to the needs of young people, the diverse needs of young people, especially when it comes to mental health and HIV integration. I remember in 2019, we had a program that Viv Healthcare was conducting. Me and Paul participated in this program, and it had a segment where it had life coaching. And the segment of life coaching was really to help people learn how to respond to the diverse needs of our communities. And I feel this would be a very nice program for us to have, as Munira has been talking about psychologists. And this program was just mentoring you to support people, not as, being parents to them, because we have been trained as peer educators to be parents to, our peers, which is not right. We are not supposed to be paternalistic, but we are supposed to be, people who are present to, strengthen or give direction to young people. And this program was mainly, supporting you to understand how to, respond to your clients, need, but not even giving them advice, but giving them an opportunity to look for their strengths and weaknesses and see how they can build up themselves. So when I hear young people talk about, men are running away from services, I recall that we need such a kind of service in our programming. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Okay, yeah, that was part 19. Yeah. That was in 2019, and it's good to have you in this session. And of course, these capacity strengthening meetings, we continue to meet them. I remember we were so young, but now time has moved. We've literally grown up. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll take Olela Tony.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. I've been following deeply to the conversation, and I'm glad to hear how we've really made the panel so inclusive in this conversation. Just to start, my name is Olela Tony. I'm a gender expert and SRHR advocate. I'm also a member of the movement from Kenya. I just wanted to ask, because last weekend I had an in-person discussion on men's mental health, trying to look into minds over muscle. And a question that really came, maybe the panelists can try to respond to this, is there a specific formula that can be used to address mental health? And I added in that I think for us to address issues of mental health, it starts with you as an individual, so that you can try to get a space in which you don't allow yourself to be in that situation. And also, the people whom we feel like engaging, the psychologists, the counselors, the therapists, yes, they are there to help us, but their task is only to facilitate the process of you being mentally well. But the end game is all sticks in you as an individual. So the question is, how best can we create a safe space for young people to openly have these conversations without feeling discriminated? Because we're living in a world where social behavior has taken course, and young people won't easily feel comfortable to share their issues or their problem with the elderly, but they'd rather share with their own peers. So how can you make this comfortable for them? Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olila, for your question. So we are having the next segment of advocacy messages, and I will kindly request Priscilla and Lerato to take note of the question to also respond. Okay, so let's just wrap up this section that we are in so that we move on to the next segment. Our apologies, time is running behind ourselves. So literally, if Shanice or Lakamo, if you can show the Mentimeter result so that we move on to the next segment.
Just to say thank you so much for that, Paul. The Mentimeter is still on. Please do add all your contributions. It's still presenting on that particular screen. So please keep adding and keep putting it on the chat, even as we move on to our next segment. And it is just about developing advocacy messages. So remember, we have reviewed, what the statistics and the evidence are. And in this segment, we're just going to be developing some advocacy messages. I will now hand over to Priscilla and Lerato. But please do keep adding into the Menti that is running currently.
Thank you, Shanice. Priscilla and Lerato, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shanice. Thank you very much, Paul. I think it has been a very interesting and insightful conversation so far, especially with the submissions from our panelists. So as we can see on our screen, we have some data points. During Shanice's presentation, she shared very essential data around mental health for adolescents and young people living and affected by HIV. And so we are going to do an example of two, how to use the data or how to craft advocacy messages around the data that you have. It's very important that you use data to promote your advocacy, but then again, it is also important to note to not only use data, but to bring a human focus to it. So it sort of connects with your audience. So these are going to be our two examples, and then the rest of the examples you will lead me in creating or crafting advocacy messages. So I'm going to try using two first. So the first data point we have is half of all mental health challenges occur by the age of 14. This is a really crucial data point because it's telling you that all mental health challenges that have globally been recorded, half of them, occur at the age of 14. So it's letting us know that it is important that timely interventions are held or are engaged with young people, adolescents, before it escalates, before their mental health deteriorates. So if we want to turn this into an advocacy message, we would look at it like this, for example. So I think Paul will have to type in, or whoever is sharing the screen will have to type in as I share. So a simple advocacy message that you can craft from this data point would be, half of all mental health challenges begin by age 14. Early interventions are very important to save lives. We must prioritize mental health for our adolescents and young people today. So just from this message, you have a prominent or a pertinent solution you are giving on why is it important? What is the issue? The issue is that half of our mental health challenges begin by age 14. So early interventions are crucial or very important if we want to change lives, if we want to ensure that mental health of adolescents and young, that would be the first focus. And then we'll move on to the second data point, which is looking at 1 in 17 adolescents, that is from the ages of 15 to 19 years. Continent Africa, 15 to 19-year-olds. If you take 7 of them, 1 of them suffer with a mental health condition. So this is the issue. So how do you craft this? So an example would be 1 in 7 adolescents in Africa live with mental health condition. 1 in 7 adolescents in Africa live with a mental health condition. It is time to break the stigma and provide the support they need. So this would be how you would craft an example of a brief advocacy point. So this is looking at first, what is your theme? Your theme, or what area is your focus on with mental health? Mental health is broad. Who exactly are you looking out for, or who exactly are you advocating for? You are advocating for adolescents from the age group you have mentioned right here, which is the 1 in 7 adolescents. And then in Africa, so you are specific with the continent, the region, the age range, and you have data to back it up. So your solution is looking at breaking the stigma surrounding mental health and then providing them with the necessary support they need in. Before I move on, I just want to add that advocacy is a really lengthy process, but it is important to have a central theme or a central focus of your advocacy. When you do not have a central focus, it makes it difficult for you to carry out your message. And also, please take note that a clear and a concise message will always win over a message that is convoluted, too many words or too many jargons or too many, high-grade grammar. The simpler your message, the clearer it is, and the faster it will get to your audience. So thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Shanice. I'm going to hand it over to Lera to
Thank you, Priscilla, and good afternoon, everybody. So we are now going to go into the Mentimeter. And others can use the chat box if you don't have access to the Mentimeter or you just see it being a job and a half. So when we develop the messages, what needs to happen is that you can see that we have shared the facts on we have 6 facts that we have shared on the screen, so you can select any that you want, the way that Priscilla has explained. For instance, in Uganda, a study found that 51.2% of adolescents living with HIV experienced psychological distress, and 17.1% had attempted suicide in the past month. So you can develop a message around that. But before we continue, I see that I think it's Kalunga has his or her hand raised. I don't want to mispronounce you, so you can go ahead.
I think I'm making him. Hello, people. I think we've got like the bullets in our guns, but we are not actually filing back, because when you look into this here in Uganda, mental health is actually like the biggest problem we have. I register actually death cases at least 1 in a month or 2. The stigma, the environment stigma, the family and everything. I won't go deep because a lot has been said. Me, actually, as a person, I came up with a link a link where to keep or safeguard our members, all the LGBT boys, most of the youths, they only have to share this link within themselves. And as I can show you, this is the QR code. And when you scan it, it will show you different services. If at all you want to go to any healthcare center, or you want to see a counselor about about mental problems, of course, I'll access you there, without fear or doubt. And with this app, you can literally order, because we're fighting a lot of stuff, HIV inclusive or anything. So when you open that link, there's this is Arvis. Then you'll find a sector where you can literally order lubricant from, and where you can actually order condoms from, and then the oral testing kits. I came up with this because of what is happening in Uganda. They signed the anti-gay bill, we all know, and the main mom actually the main mom you can the main mother, sorry, the minimum punishment you can get is getting arrested for a lifetime. It's a lifetime penalty, so or a death penalty rather. So with such challenges in Uganda, and the leaders were literally supposed to look up to help us, just helping themselves. Should I say they're just money eaters? And organizations are there, they are fully funded, but these kids have no access to them. They have no access to them.
Understand, Rashid. I understand, Rashid. Thank you very much. The thing is, we also want others to share their interventions and also share their messages. But what's this? Not I've seen, but I like the information that you're sharing with us. And if you could also share what's this? I saw that it's what's this?
QR code. I literally
a QR code. Please, if you can share it with us on the chat, so that if people on the group, if you are,
it feels like everything is connected, but the good news is there is help available. Thank you, George, for sharing. And we can as well share the comments of our contributions within the chat. Well, at least we are responding to the Mentimeter and waiting for Lerato.
Thank you, Paul, Mazrita. Guys, our 5 minutes is up, and we don't want to keep you any longer than the time that we said we want you guys to be part of this webinar. So I'm just gonna go quickly through the chat while Shanice is going to beam up some of the messages that you shared on Menti, and I hope you did, because these messages are going to be the ones that will help us to guide the conversation moving forward as the united movement, and also to assist you guys in countries, because there isn't mental health issues. It's something that we face every day, and we really can't run away from it. And the more we speak about it, the easier it makes it. It makes it easier for other people to talk about their issues, and also access to the service that we need, psychosocial services, and also just people being aware that a mental health, it's an issue that people in Africa we face, because it's still stigmatized. The moment you speak about having a mental breakdown, already you are seen as something that's out of this world. But that's a topic also that we are going to keep on having as we continue. Right now, I'm just going to go through quickly on the chat. I only see one person who has shared with everybody. The comment that when you read, Paul, I can't see it, but I see from Dolly, she is saying that mental health matters. Let's work together to create supportive environment for adolescent mothers and those living with HIV who are disproportionate. English decided to not, love here. affected by mental health disorders in South Africa. So, Shanice, for the next 3 minutes, I'm going to go through the ones that we have on Menti. Please beam it up because I don't have access to the Menti.
Lerato, we had an issue with Menti, so we have not yet received any responses as of now.
Hi, Bo. All right. Those who have shared on Menti, please, guys, if you can also share it on the chat quickly. But we will, Paul can go through them, but for now, because of time and respect, I'm gonna hand over to Paul to take us through the next part of the session and also the closing. So, Shangwari, over to you. Paul, you are muted.
All right, thank you. Mazita Lerato wagonesa shamwari. It's actually good to see you speaking, Shona. It's brilliant. All right, anyway, thank you so much, Lerato and Priscilla for leading us this segment. And thank you to everyone who has stayed with us during this time as we wrap up. Now, in this segment, I'm just gonna share a little bit about my experiences as well on moving beyond advocacy and supporting our mental health. Sometimes advocacy can be so stressing. I want to start by the applications. That message which you receive, which says, "We regret to inform you that you have not been successful." It's one of the most stressful message that one person can ever hear. So we are advocates. You applied for youth grants, we applied for youth scholarships, we're applying for youth fellowships and a lot of things. But when you're applying, you take time, you take investment into applying, then you receive, "We regret to inform you." You apply again, 3 to 4 times. Till you are now saying, maybe these opportunities are for these people, maybe it's not for me, maybe they have their people. I'm sure we all have such experiences. There's a lot of mental health that we went through. So literally from my experience, after application rejection, you actually need to consult what went wrong. If it's possible to ask on the email what went wrong, so that you have some knowledge on how you can be better for next applications. And as well, I have good friends, I've got peer supporters as well that I talk to. I've got my own community adolescent treatment supporter cats. We call them cats at Randiri. I also have my fellows, which I speak to when I face mental health, not just for applications, but in terms of, for example, we have been speaking to so many platforms that we have been speaking. When you speak something, you want to see people listening and you want to see things changing, be it service delivery, changing in clinics, be it policies changing to what we want, be it even resource allocation and resource mobilization. So, there's a lot of stress, depression, trauma, anxiety that comes in when you have been speaking, but what you're speaking is not happening. You're speaking about service delivery, but you're not seeing any change. You're not even seeing any universal health coverage when you have been speaking. So there's a lot of depression that we all need to find mental health support in such situations. Then, other organizations are getting it right. And others, they are still a long way to support young people in terms of meaningful youth engagement. For example, an opportunity that, say you have been awarded an opportunity for a conference to Ethiopia. Then they say, but you find your own flights, your own registration, you find your own accommodation. How is that an opportunity? It's an opportunity that is not an opportunity. It's something that also causes stress. That you'd be excited, yeah, I got an opportunity, I'm now going to Ethiopia. Then boom, you're supposed to cover those things for yourself. So an example of another stress that we also primarily go through. Even for these virtual meetings, you've been selected to be a speaker for this virtual meeting, but you're not providing data, or you're not provided any maybe transport to go to where you're supposed to connect from. So these are some of the primary examples that I have provided from my own previous experience, which contribute to our mental health. And, this is something that is more tough. For example, you're supposed to be focusing on your messages that you have to contribute to a conference, to an event, not necessarily to focus on the logistics and other things. So, some organizations are getting it right, and some organizations are still a long way in terms of balancing meaningful youth engagement and advocacy, our mental health as we advocate for HIV, sexual reproductive health, and actually mental health services. And and I would like to thank various organizations which are prioritizing meaningful youth engagement, not necessarily to tokenize, not necessarily to exploit, but who really value the time, our time, who compensate our time, who really value our contributions, who are changing their policies, who are changing their guidelines. That's what we want to see. It's a mental health it's a mental health relief on its own to just see what you've been speaking coming to life. Is we have been spoken about a variety of prevention methods. Then you see Deborah Weinring color prevention method coming in, injection coming in. You have got actually mental health relief. So from my own, I encourage you to take self-care. It's very important. Reflect on yourself. Take some time off. Find peers to talk to, get support, get psychological support, talk to mental health specialists, talk to your peer support. We are there to provide psychosocial support and mental health to each other. Thank you so much. So I want to hear from you on this Mentimeter that's shown on the screen. What strategies have you used to support your own mental health? I've shared with you some practical experiences.
Sorry, this is not the Mentimeter. This is for the resources.
Oh, this is for the resources. Okay, so for the Mentimeter, are we skipping that? Oh, Mentimeter is not working right now.
Yes, it's not working right now. Thank you.
Okay, apologies. So you can utilize, thanks Janice for that, apologies. So I've just shared with you some of the practical examples within advocacy that causes mental health. And, I've also shared some of the good things to also do. So you can literally share in the chat. Our apologies, our Mentimeter is not working. So you can share in the chat, what strategies do you use to support your mental health? I know there's a lot of things that you go through. Can you share in chat, what do you recommend needs to be done when we are advocating in meaningful youth engagement in our mental health? What do you think needs to be done for us to be so strong? Okay, so now wrapping up the session. We need resources. We've been talking about mental health and psychosocial support. I encourage you to join the United Movement. And here are some of the mental health and psychosocial support resources. And in this segment, I'm leaving it to Faith and Brian for this section. Faith and Brian, over to you.
Hi, Paul. It's me again. I think I'll be helping Faith out with this session. So we've talked a lot during this session. You've had the evidence, you've heard from panelists and mental health advocates. We have developed advocacy messages, and Paul has just given us a very good introduction into self-care and why we need to prioritize on our self-care as mental health advocates. So we want to help you with some of these resources that can help just for you to read through, and also to help how you navigate on your self-care and your advocacy. Because remember, evidence-based advocacy is where it's at. That's where you're going to get people. That's where you're going to get, those donors coming in. That's where you're going to get more people hooked with the kind of work that you're doing, and spread the word on the importance of mental health. So if you scan the code that is in front of you right now, it is a link tree and it's filled with resources for both your advocacy and your own personal mental health as an advocate. Paul, you gave such beautiful examples, because sometimes you're called to these meetings with some people and you really don't know what to say or what to do. Maybe the anxiety and the stress of performing, or maybe it's simply, being out there advocating and no one is really listening to you. It can really take a toll on your mental health. as Munira elaborated earlier when she was explaining on her journey and her advocacy. So please do take some time. We can also post this link on the chat so that you can have more info about it, and you can also be plugged into these resources. Back to you, Paul. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shanice. Thank you so much, Shanice, for taking us through the resources. Okay, so you are welcome to copy this link. You're welcome to copy this link. It has been posted in the chat, or you're welcome to take the picture for the QR code to access some of the mental health and psychosocial support resources that we have. And I would like to thank you all for joining this United Movement session. And I would encourage you to, share this information within your network. You can go on social media. We are using hashtag United Movement. Like you can type the hashtags within the chat box. We're also using hashtag Advocates Amplified. You can take the Y Plus Global, you can take AFRIAN, UNICEF, UNAIDS, your organizations that you work at. You can take, and let's get this conversation continue to go on within social media. And major takeaways from this session is there is a clear linkage between HIV, sexual reproductive health, and mental health. And this is a package of care that we need to prioritize. When we are advocating for HIV within the spaces, within the service delivery, let's ensure that mental health is inclusive. Let's make sure that we reach out to peer supporters. Let's make sure that we have peers that we reach out to mental health specialists in terms of support, in terms of our mental health. And let us advocate. I just want to share this before we close. There's a clear line between mental health and viral load. Within the HIV response, as we are advocating for treatment adherence, we reach viral load. But if someone is experiencing depression and trauma, their viral load can go up. So as we're advocating for resources towards access to HIV treatment, access to viral load testing, access to viral load and other testing diagnostics, let's also advocate for mental health resources. We need mental health resources. We have, for example, at Randiri in Zimbabwe, where we've got adolescent corners that we have. We need to conduct advocacy sessions around mental health. We need resources. We need to do some games, some fun, refreshing from this major formal work. We need to refresh, we need to refocus, and all those things need resources. So when you're doing your advocacy, advocating for EUGOSTU, advocating for access to treatment, advocating for viral load, don't forget to advocate for mental health, because we need mental health. A combination, an integration of viral load and mental health brings good outcomes. And at Randiri would say, young people, we support young people living with HIV, not only to survive, but to thrive. We give them access to treatment, and we also provide them with psychosocial support and counseling. Then that means we thrive. It's not only about taking medicines. Medicines alone are not enough. We need psychosocial support to survive and thrive. Thank you so much for joining, and let's keep this conversation going social media, and join the United Movement. Despite which country you're coming from, which organization you're coming from, join the United Movement. Join the United Movement today. Thank you so much for your time that you have sacrificed to come here, and see you for another segment of Advocates Amplified series. And be sure to tune in for the next sessions. Thank you so much, and have a great time.